Hi everybody and welcome to Alex Erm's Clips. I never imagined my life would end up like this. My name's Mark, I'm 47, and for the past 17 years, I've been married to Lisa, who's now 42. Or at least, we've been married on paper. In reality, we've been living separately for most of that time, 10 years, to be exact. It all started a decade ago when everything I thought I knew about my marriage came crashing down. Lisa cheated on me. She didn't deny it when I confronted her. Instead, she sat me down, looked me in the eyes, and confessed, "Mark, I'm not in love with you anymore. I've been struggling since the kids were born, and I need something different. I want us to have an open marriage." I was floored. We had 2 children. Our eldest was just a toddler, and the baby was barely out of diapers. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. An open marriage. I repeated, my voice trembling. We've built a life together, a family. How can you just throw it away like this? She sighed, tears forming in her eyes. I'm not trying to throw anything away. I need to feel alive again. The back-to-back pregnancies, the sleepless nights, it's taken a toll on me. I'm not the same person I was before. Her way of feeling alive turned out to be bringing other men into her bed. Divorce wasn't a simple option back then. I was working a low-paying job, and with 2 small kids. The thought of splitting our lives apart seemed impossible. So I made a decision, a painful, bitter decision. I moved upstairs in our duplex home while Lisa stayed downstairs. We became co-parents, managing the kids together but living very separate lives. It wasn't easy. Those first few years were filled with resentment and shouting matches. I couldn't look at her without remembering her betrayal. But time has a way of dulling even the sharpest wounds. Eventually, we fell into a routine. Lisa lived her life her way, and I focused on raising the kids and trying to heal. Fast forward to a few months ago, when I met Kathy. She's 35, a colleague at work, and everything about her felt easy, natural. At first, we were just co-workers, sharing conversations over coffee and teaming up on projects. But something about her energy drew me in. Over time, we started spending time together outside of work. It was purely platonic until it wasn't. One night, we kissed, and everything changed. It wasn't just chemistry, it was connection. After that, Kathy started staying over at my place occasionally, and for the first time in years, I felt like I had something real to look forward to. But Lisa wasn't happy about it. At first, I couldn't put my finger on what was going on. She started showing up at odd times, inserting herself into situations where she didn't belong. One night, Kathy and I were having dinner in my kitchen when Lisa walked in uninvited, carrying her own plate. "Mind if I join you guys?" she asked, not waiting for an answer before sitting down. Kathy and I exchanged awkward glances, but what could we do? Lisa dominated the conversation with meaningless chatter, and the evening was ruined. I chalked it up to her trying to be friendly, though it felt forced. Then there was the movie night incident. Kathy and I were upstairs, watching a film, when Lisa barged in without knocking. "Mark," she said, her tone sharp, "I need you downstairs. The younger one has a science project, and he needs your help." I frowned. "What are you talking about?" "We agreed you handle his schoolwork, and I handle the older ones. I've already done my part." Her eyes narrowed. "He's your son too, Mark. What kind of father are you, ignoring your child to lounge around like this?" The argument escalated quickly. Kathy, clearly uncomfortable, made an excuse to leave. After she left, I turned to Lisa, furious. "You've had free rein to live your life however you wanted for 10 years. I've never interfered. Now that I've found someone, you're suddenly playing the concerned wife." Lisa looked taken aback but insisted she wasn't trying to sabotage anything. "I was just stressed about the project," she said, her voice wavering. "I didn't mean to make things awkward." To her credit, Lisa later called Kathy to apologize, but the damage was done. Kathy set clear boundaries, saying she preferred meeting at her place from now on. I couldn't blame her. Now I'm stuck. I cared deeply for Kathy, but Lisa's erratic behavior is making things impossible. 4 years, I stayed in this marriage for the kids, not wanting them to grow up torn between 2 parents. But now, I'm starting to wonder if it's time to let go for good. Now, I'm stuck in a loop of indecision. Should I finally end this farce of a marriage and prioritize my happiness, even if it means disrupting my children's lives? Or do I hold out a few more years until they're older, more independent? The worst part is, I'm not sure Kathy would wait for me that long. And honestly, I can't blame her. Even after all these years, anger simmers just below the surface. I'm angry at Lisa for her betrayal and at myself for caving to her absurd proposal of an open marriage. Back then, I should have fought harder, demanded better for myself, for my children. Since some of this might seem murky, let me take you back to where it all began. It's a long story, but maybe then, my situation will make more sense. It started about 10 years ago, not long after the birth of our younger son. Lisa began acting distant, both physically and emotionally. Intimacy became non-existent. "I'm not ready for sex," she'd say, brushing me off whenever I tried to initiate anything. The pregnancies, the breastfeeding, it's all made me, not myself. I respected her wishes. I told myself to be patient, that she needed time. But as months stretched into nearly a year, the emotional gap between us grew into a chasm. She was checked out, barely present as a wife, and increasingly detached as a mother. One night, after putting the kids to bed, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. "Lisa, we need to talk," I said firmly. She glanced up from her phone, her expression guarded. "About what?" "This. U.S. You've been shutting me out for months. I think we need to see a therapist. Together?" She shook her head, laughing bitterly. "Mark, it's just a postpartum thing. It'll pass. It's been almost a year. This isn't something we can just ignore." Her reaction was dismissive, almost cruel. "You're overreacting. Stop making this into a bigger deal than it is." But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. When I pressed her again weeks later, her irritation flared. "Why can't you just let it go?" she snapped. I didn't let it go. I started paying closer attention, little things, like how often she'd delete messages on her phone or come home later than usual without explanation. Finally, one day, she told me she was going shopping with friends. Something about her tone didn't sit right with me. I followed her car. She didn't go shopping. Instead, she pulled into the driveway of a small house in the next neighborhood. My heart sank as I watched her walk to the door, her steps quick and eager. I parked around the corner and waited, my mind racing. After 30 agonizing minutes, I couldn't take it anymore. I walked up to the house and knocked. The door opened to reveal a shirtless young man barely out of college, if that. Behind him, on the couch, was Lisa, clad in nothing but lingerie, her face a mask of shock and shame. "Mark, what the hell are you doing here?" she stammered, scrambling to cover herself with a throw blanket. I didn't answer. My fists clenched as I stared the guy down. "You knew she was married." His eyes widened. "What? Married?" "No, I didn't know." Lisa jumped to her feet. "Stop it, Mark. Don't take this out on him. He doesn't know anything." My voice was icy. "And just how many others don't know, Lisa? How many other guys have you been sneaking around with?" She hesitated, tears welling up. Then she said the words that shattered what little remained of my trust. "A couple. It's not serious with any of them." We drove home in silence. Once inside, I erupted, calling her parents and laying everything bare. "Your daughter's been cheating on me," I said bluntly. "I want a divorce." Lisa sobbed as I aired the truth, but I didn't care. I was done. Or at least, I thought I was. When I met with a lawyer, reality hit me like a freight train. Divorce, in our no-fault state, wouldn't punish Lisa for her infidelity. Custody of our kids, both so young, would tilt heavily in her favor. At best, I'd get joint custody on her terms. The lawyer explained, "You'd still pay alimony and child support, Mark. You'd be responsible, but you wouldn't have control. Is that something you're prepared for?" I wasn't. Lisa, on the other hand, was surprisingly against divorce. "Why ruin everything?" she said. "We can make this work. Let's just open things up. We can live our own lives and come back to each other when we're ready." Her suggestion made me sick, but with my limited options, I agreed, though not to her so-called open marriage. For me, this was a dead arrangement, nothing more than cohabitation for the sake of the kids. I moved into the upstairs guest bedroom of our duplex. The setup, originally built by the previous owners for their son's privacy, allowed me to come and go through the back door without crossing paths with Lisa too often. She stayed downstairs with the master bedroom, free to bring whoever she wanted into our home. And she did. Over the years, Lisa had plenty of partners, some of whom she claimed were just casual flings. Others, well, they seemed more than that. They went on hikes, vacations, even stayed over. It wasn't easy for me to see strangers coming in and out of what used to be our shared life. But I kept my head down for the sake of the kids. For a decade, I endured. But now, with Kathy in my life, I'm realizing just how much I sacrificed, how much I've lost. The upstairs space I had been relegated to, was initially a guest room large enough to rival the master bedroom downstairs. Over time, I converted it into the children's room, thinking it would be more practical. The rest of the upstairs was a multi-purpose space with a library-like vibe, complete with cozy chairs and shelves, doubling as a spot for small gatherings. From there, a staircase led to the rooftop terrace, offering a quiet escape. The setup provided me a unique vantage point to observe life downstairs. Sometimes, I wished I could shut my eyes to what I saw. Lisa's revolving door of companions was hard to stomach, but I told myself to endure it for the kids. I needed to stay vigilant for their sake. In the beginning, I tried distracting myself by dating. I figured if Lisa could move on, I could too. But every date felt hollow, a futile attempt to fill the void. After a few months, I stopped altogether. Instead, I focused on meaningful activities, things that brought me joy. I joined a badminton club, rediscovering my love for sports from my college days. Weekends became dedicated to the court or field. I also joined a hiking group that organized solo hikes. The catch? You couldn't bring anyone you knew. It was just you and strangers navigating the trail together. At first, it was nerve-wracking, but it turned out to be liberating. For 2 years, I hiked every other month, losing myself in nature and the camaraderie of temporary connections. I've had a few casual flings over the last decade, but nothing that ever went beyond the surface. No emotional ties, no long-term partners. It all felt like a pale imitation of what love should be. That changed when I met Kathy. With her, things were different. Being around her felt natural, like slipping into a rhythm I didn't know I'd been missing. I could see myself loving her, truly loving her. She gave me hope that I could rebuild a life that wasn't just about enduring. But, of course, Lisa's shadow looms over everything. Kathy has stopped coming to my place entirely. She feels uncomfortable around Lisa, who is still technically my wife. I just don't want to deal with it, Kathy admitted one evening as we sat together at her place. It's too messy, Mark. I don't want to lose you over this, I said earnestly. You mean too much to me. And I care about you, too, she replied. But your family dynamic, it's complicated. I knew she was right. My life had become a tug-of-war between Kathy and my children. I couldn't seem to reconcile the two. Therapy helped me get clarity. My therapist said something that stuck with me. You've built your life around sacrifice. For 10 years. Maybe it's time to consider what you need. The children were growing up. Soon, they'd be teenagers, then adults with lives of their own. I couldn't delay my happiness indefinitely. I decided to have an honest conversation with Kathy. I want to be with you, I told her. I know my situation is messy, but if you're willing, I'll figure it out. I'll make it work. Kathy hesitated but eventually nodded. I feel the same way. But I can't keep running into your wife, Mark. It's too much. I'll move out, I said firmly. The kids can decide where they want to stay. They're old enough to make that choice. With Kathy's support, I took the next step, counseling for the children. It was important that they understood what was happening in a way they could process. When I told Lisa about the counseling, she flipped. You're dragging the kids into this mess. Are you out of your mind? Lisa, I said sharply, don't talk to me about mess. What about the chaos you created when they were babies? And you were off with God knows who while I stayed and picked up the pieces? Her face flushed with anger. That was different. Different how? I shot back. Because it was your choice. I'm done sacrificing my happiness for you. The kids deserve to know what's going on, and they'll be fine. They're stronger than you think. The counseling went better than I'd expected. The kids appreciated that Lisa and I had stayed together for their sake all these years. More importantly, they understood my need to move forward. We just want you to be happy, Dad, my older son said, and his younger sibling nodded in agreement. When I told Lisa I was filing for divorce, her reaction was predictable. You're seriously leaving me for her? She asked, her voice trembling. This isn't about Kathy, I replied. This is about me finally prioritizing my happiness, something I should have done years ago. But we agreed, she said, tears streaming down her face. No matter what, we wouldn't divorce. We'd always be there for the kids, for each other. I shook my head. That agreement was your way of keeping me trapped while you lived however you wanted. I'm done. You can keep the house and the car as alimony. I'll take care of the kids' education. But I'm moving on. Lisa sobbed, trying every tactic to guilt me. I've had men who wanted to marry me, but I stayed. I didn't leave this family. Stop it, I said coldly. You stayed because it suited you, not out of loyalty. Don't twist the truth. Her final offer was desperate. You can move out, live with Kathy, but we'll stay married. Please, Mark, don't break this family. but I was done living in a broken illusion of a marriage. I told Lisa plainly, I love Kathy, and I'm not letting her be labeled as my mistress. Maybe the world wouldn't call her that, but you would. You'd stoop to anything to humiliate others, and I won't stand for it. The divorce papers were on their way, and I had a plan in motion. After the children's annual exams, I planned to take them on a trip, and then I'd officially move out. I couldn't wait for the relief of this chapter ending and for a new one to begin. But Lisa didn't take things lying down. While I was on vacation with the kids, she pulled one of her cruelest stunts yet. She showed up at Kathy's place, sobbing, and begged her to back off. You're destroying my family, Lisa cried. Do you know how much my children are suffering because of you? When guilt-tripping didn't work, Lisa resorted to outright lies. Mark isn't serious about you, she claimed. You're just a fling to him. Kathy, ever the composed and secure woman I've come to love, didn't lash out or contact me in a panic. She calmly waited for me to return from the trip. She had my hotel information but chose not to disturb me, trusting that we'd handle the situation together when I was back. When I returned home and heard about Lisa's actions, I was furious. I marched straight to her house and unleashed a storm of words I'd bottled up for years. This entitlement of yours ends now, I shouted. You've crossed every boundary, Lisa. Stop meddling in my life. I should have confronted her like this years ago. But at least now, I was done tolerating her manipulative behavior. Despite her tantrums, crying, pleading, yelling, and even gaslighting, nothing could stop my decision to leave. I told her the truth. Our relationship ended a decade ago. We've been nothing but housemates and co-parents since then. I've moved on. I don't love you anymore. Kathy is the woman I want to spend my life with. Even when the divorce papers arrived, Lisa couldn't accept reality. She tore them up in a fit of rage. My lawyer had to send her a legal notice warning of consequences for destroying a legal document. Only then did she finally agree to sign. The proceedings began, and I kept my distance. I only saw Lisa when I picked up the kids, but I refused to step inside her house. At 11 and 13, my children were mature enough to understand the divorce and had decided they wanted to live with me. After weeks of preparation, I rented a new house and started the move. To avoid any unnecessary drama with Lisa, we didn't tell her the children were moving in with me until everything was set. The kids even suggested sneaking out with their packed bags while Lisa wasn't around. But I wanted to do things the right way. I gave Lisa the required 3-day notice, as outlined in our divorce agreement, and told her the kids would be moving in with me. Predictably, she freaked out. Thankfully, she didn't resort to breaking things, but she went full emotional mode, hugging the kids and crying. I'm sorry for everything, she sobbed. Please don't abandon me. Her manipulation worked on my younger child, who later called me and said he wanted to stay with Mama. Kathy had warned me to prepare for such a situation. I kept calm and told him, that's okay. Dad loves you no matter what. But my older son stood firm. I'm moving out with you, Dad, he said, unwavering in his decision. When I went to pick up my older son, I was surprised to see both boys ready with their bags. They hugged me tightly, and I didn't ask any questions about what had changed. It's already been so traumatic for them, and I didn't want to dig deeper or make things harder. Kathy and I are now doing everything we can to make the boys comfortable in their new home. We've involved them in setting up their rooms, letting them pick the decor, furniture, and layout. It's important that they feel like this is their space. When the children were leaving Lisa's house, I half expected her to make one last desperate attempt to stop them. Instead, she sat there sobbing, hugging the boys tightly and apologizing to them. I'm so sorry for everything, she said, her voice breaking. I love you both so much. Please remember, you're always welcome at Mama's anytime you want to come back. Afterward, she asked me for a moment alone, suggesting we have coffee together. Her tone was sincere, and though I was hesitant, I agreed. We sat in an awkward silence for a few moments before she spoke. This time, her apology seemed genuine. I've been so delusional, she said softly. I never thought you'd actually leave. Even when Kathy came into your life, I didn't take it seriously. I thought she was just another fling that would fade away in a month. I guess I took you for granted, your stability, the way you always stayed for the kids. Even after everything I put you through. I didn't realize how mean and narcissistic I'd been until it was too late. Her words caught me off guard, but I stayed composed. I simply smiled, suppressing the wave of emotions building inside me. As I got up to leave, she stood and hugged me. It was the first time we'd hugged in 10 years. I hugged her back, unsure of what I felt in that moment. I still can't fully process how I feel about that hug, or our conversation. I'm not happy, but I'm not sad either. Just numb. The past 6 or 7 months have been a whirlwind, transforming nearly every aspect of my life. It will take time to process everything, but I'm grateful for the support I've received from everyone who's been part of this journey. For now, this chapter feels closed. I'll only update this story if something significant happens moving forward. Thank you all for being there.